Hey everybody, it's Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and ScooterWest.com for all things Vespa, whether you got a modern Vespa or a vintage Vespa such as this. Here we have a 1965 Vespa GL 150, Gran Lusso. And what's the appeal about this scooter is it was the highest luxury trim that they had in the 60s, but just the Boulevard Cruiser motor. It wasn't the Super Sport, wasn't the GS, it wasn't the SS90. It was just a well-equipped, well-trimmed out scooter with just the regular old 150 motor. The Vespa GL was produced between 1962 and about 1966, maybe 67. I don't know the exact year when they ceased production of this trim level. There's some minor changes, based on the frame, but the engine pretty much remained the same through all the years. They made about 80,000 of these scooters worldwide, so it's not too hard to find, but considering the age and finding a kept original condition one is pretty rare. And sometimes you can find a well-restored version such as this one here. This scooter was painted by us about 5 years ago. We did all the body work and paint work on this scooter approximately 5 years ago. The prior owner to the current owner was a big time hot rod car guy from what I understand. And he had quite the mechanical aptitude and always wanted to restore a Vespa. So he purchased most of the reproduction parts, the restored the scooter from us at ScooterWest.com. He's a San Diego guy. And shortly after he restored it, kind of had his fun with it for a few months, decided just to move on and sell it. So the new owner has kept the scooter for about 4 or 5 years, if I recall. It's kept in pretty much immaculate shape. It's just a garage scooter that gets used, every couple Sundays. And that's the perfect application for the scooter. Again, just the basic 150cc scooter. It's a 4-speed transmission on it, but just the lower tune output, like 5 horsepower motor, same as a VBB of the era, which is a 150cc scooter, but pretty low power output. They have a pretty small carburetor, a pretty small header, so top speed on the scooters maybe 50, 55 miles an hour. I have one of these scooters in my own personal collection. I was like crazy and young when I first got it. I remember riding it from Mexico all the way to the northern parts of San Diego, where I lived at the time. On the freeway, I was like crazy. But this is about this scooter today. Mine was like repainted, looked all ugly, beat the crap out of it, all that stuff. Someday I'll restore it. Onto the trim on the scooter. Starting on the top. Pretty much the exact same handlebars as the top of the line trim of Vespa in the early mid 60s. The Super Sport, the SS 180. They have the very unique trapezoid headlight and the signature clamshell speedometer on aluminum handlebars. Again, 4-speed transmission with the manual clutch, the classic pointy levers, and the classic gray grips that are found on Vespas of this period. Moving on to the leg shields. I've always liked this badge. This is normally a plastic one, that's a reproduction one, but it's a plastic badge that kind of looks like a jelly bean. Pretty cool looking badge, especially if you have the original one, which is pretty hard to find. The Vespa GL badge is really unique. It's like a stamped thin sheet metal with little teeny individual rivets that hold it in place. Very unique badge that was carried on towards the later, because the Super Sport, some of the other models by the 60s already had a cast aluminum badge, which is much easier to install than these riveted badges. Kind of gives it a very custom, classic look with that riveted badge. And being a Gran Lusso, you're going to have all the premium trim, the nice clamshell horn on there, not just the basic one. It's got the fender crest, the aluminum trim embellishments on the front fender. It's got the standard run-of-the-mill fork found on most Vespas of this period. The difference being is they painted the wheels, the hub, and the fork all in the same eggshell white ivory color, which I've always thought was a very elegant look to the scooter. Again, 10-inch wheels, so it has added stability, just like the Super Sport and the GS. but the lower test engine. And if you move on to the hub looks equally as beautiful. The nice aluminum finned hub design. You have the standard exposed brake pedal. You got a pair of holes to mount a spare tire on the inside. It's funny, my GL 150, it has a Super Sport glove box, which is pretty unique. Actually, a glove box is worth a lot of money. Probably more than a whole scooter. Nah, not quite that bad, but the rubber floor mat with the stainless steel strips and the signature Vespa floor rails in aluminum with the Tiger Claw floor rail end caps that have always looked very, very cool. Moving on to the cowl here. You have the classic louvered cowl. The Kickstarter normally would have had aluminum Kickstarter. This is a chrome one. Obviously it looks a little sharper, but it's normally a polished aluminum Kickstarter. Then you can pull the cowl off with the single hook and pull that out. And this scooter has got a much more modern motor with electronic ignition. It goes much faster than original GL, so that's not quite original, but pretty much the same classic rotary valve motor that Vespa has done since 1959, but a modern iteration of this motor. So underneath the seat, you have the classic bag hook. Hold your bag, that's got the spring-loaded clamp, the choke, and the fuel tap or the petcock control. So you have on, off, and a reserve, which is an extra capacity for the fuel tank. So you have the latching bench seat, opens right up. And located underneath here is just your fuel tank and the classic Vespa fuel cap, which pretty much flips open. You add gas right to it, and then you can pretty much lock it, add 2% mix. They never had an automatic mixer on these models from this period. Moving on to the taillight. It's a reproduction taillight, but pretty much patterned after the original. Red lens, the little aluminum inset for the reflector, and the chrome brow. It's a very nice looking taillight. Some of the earlier models had a smaller, more petite, similar style taillight. Both cowls also furnish similar trim on them. You have a locking glove box on the cowl, so pretty much the whole entire cowl is a glove box. Nothing in there. Some markets in the very early GLs had a battery in there that powered the horn and brake and tail light, depending on the market and the models. Different markets had different lighting requirements, and they've changed some of that stuff regardless of. And for the controls, it's got the basic controls. You got a headlight switch. You can turn your headlights on and off on many of these old ones. You got a horn button, and this is the kill switch, which is sometimes exciting to push, because if it doesn't have a good ground, it may shock you through the body. So they have an integrated steering column lock. You pretty much turn the steering to the far left, you can lock it and to secure the scooter, much like many modern scooters. So fired up, we'll turn the fuel on, pull full choke. It is a pretty warm day. We'll see if it starts right up. So pretty much the classic Vespa sound. This one's a little bit louder than a GL would have been originally, because it does have a bigger muffler than they originally had from the 60s, which is quite a corked down muffler, but pretty much a classic scooter. Revs up a little quicker than they normally would. Turn your lights off if you want. And then you can push the kill switch to kill the motor there. So there's my review of the 60s GL 150 from Vespa. So maybe you're interested in a scooter like this. You're wondering what the prices will be. Well, they will range greatly. You can maybe find a barn find one that's all there for a few $100s, but of course you're going to need to put thousands into it to get it where it's safe and roadworthy. It's not as simple as just cleaning out the gas and sending it down the road when something's been sitting for 50 or 40 years. For a good running example, they don't quite command the same values as a Super Sport or a Grand Sport. of the period. But you can find a running example, I would guess, for $1,500, maybe as high as $3,000 for a fairly clean one that wasn't restored improperly, has been well kept, and in good running condition would be the top range. For a fully restored version, you got to keep in mind to restore something like this, and if you're going to pay somebody to do a restoration of this caliper, it's going to cost several $1,000s, far exceeds the value of this scooter typically, to do a quality restoration on a scooter of this era. They don't command a whole bunch like the ultra rare ones such as a SS90, SS50, or the GS handlebar bikes, SS. But a fully restored version can be found for anywhere from $3,000, maybe upwards of $5,000 for a very nice example. So if you're looking to tackle your own work on a scooter like this, you can watch some of our vintage Vespa videos on a full restoration of a P200. Pretty much all Vespas are built pretty much all the same. I'm talking all the vintage ones that shift. Modern ones, that's a whole different ball game. Nothing even like these scooters other than they say Vespa on them and have a steel chassis. I have an addendum to the engine rebuild video for the P200 engine that shows all the differences of the rotary valve motors found on the earlier scooters prior to the P200. Lots of restoration videos I've done over the years. Some are rather old, but still have lots of good, useful information. Kind of gives you an idea of what you need to do to get one of these back up and running. Find all the parts you ever need. Pretty easy to find parts for this scooter, especially when it comes to reproduction parts. ScooterWest.com, #1 source for all the parts. We always got them in stock. No one else does. Not taking shots at anybody, but that's one thing to keep in mind. We keep everything in stock here. Always have well over $2 million of inventory here at ScooterWest.com. Until next time, it's Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and ScooterWest.com. Support this channel, subscribe, hit the little bell, hit the like button if you like my videos. Hope you found that interested. If you're looking for a vintage Vespa, or maybe you're a modern Vespa person, just want to know more about Vespas in general. Ride safe, Robot here.